Kamitha Suichi, a second-year high school student in Class 2B, was summoned by Ms. Onagata Masami, his teacher, to discuss his career aspirations survey. Masami was puzzled because Kamitha had written Kabuto beetle as his future career. Kamitha explained that he wanted to catch these beetles and give them to children to make them happy. Masami pointed out that it meant Kamitha wanted to make people happy, to which Kamitha agreed, though he admitted he hadn't found his specific goal yet. Masami suggested he become a manga artist so he could create stories about Kabuto beetles, which she believed could be marketable. She even shared a detailed storyline idea featuring a male beetle, a female honeybee, and a locust as a rival. Her elaborate pitch left Kamitha confused about what to do next. During a break, Nanasaki Ikuo invited Kamitha to buy canned drinks. Ikuo expressed concern about Kamitha being called in by Masami for his survey. Knowing Kamitha's tendency to write something silly, Ikuo asked what he had written. Kamitha replied that after discussing it with Masami, he was starting to think about it more seriously. Ikuo asked if there was anything Kamitha wanted to pursue. Kamitha admitted that he wasn't even sure he could picture himself as a college student, let alone have any aspirations. Ikuo insisted Kamitha should figure out his future soon. Just then, Tatsuya Araki and his friends passed by. Araki's friends asked for his career advice, but Araki said he wasn't planning to go to college. They admired Araki's relaxed yet reliable demeanor. Kamitha found himself wishing he could be like Araki, who seemed carefree and fully immersed in gaming. Ikuo mentioned that Araki would likely inherit his family's business and enjoy a fun summer break because of his popularity. Ikuo urged Kamitha to focus on studying for the upcoming final exams, offering to study together in the library after school, especially since Ikuo knew Kamitha struggled with classical literature. Meanwhile, in class, Tsuneki Takari asked Kikuchi Yuko what she had written on her future survey. Yuko said she wanted to be a housewife and raise children while working as an idol. Takedo Yukie doubted Yuko truly understood what it meant to be a housewife. For Yuko, it sounded delightful and she envisioned herself as an idol with children. Hikari teased that Yuko would only appeal to obsessive fans. Stretching her arms, Hikari almost hit Kamitha. She asked what was wrong with him, and Kamitha said he just wanted to sit down because she was using his desk. Hikari apologized but admitted she had deliberately sat there because she found Kamitha's nervous reaction amusing. Yuko reminded Hikari not to take out her frustrations on Kamitha just because she didn't want to lose to her sister in the Santa contest. Hikari denied it, saying she was only teasing Kamitha. Kamitha was relieved when the girls left his desk, though he found himself staring at the spot where Hikari had been sitting. Unfortunately, Yuko noticed his behavior, making him even more flustered. That evening, Kamitha played a game with his older sister, Kamitha Tomoe. They argued over the game rules, leading Tomoe to use some foul language. When Tomoe abruptly ended the game, Kamitha, who had set it up for her to enjoy a summer-themed activity, started cleaning up. Tomoe asked if Kamitha was doing okay with his final exams, recalling how their mother had scolded him for his midterm results. Kamitha said he had been thinking about his future, but hadn't figured it out yet, though he promised to try harder. Tomoe was happy to hear that and offered her support, assuring Kamitha that she would always be there for him. The next day during lunch break at the school cafeteria, Kamitha couldn't find a seat because the cafeteria was overcrowded. Suddenly, Hikari, sitting in the VIP section, waved at him and invited him to join her. Hikari asked if Kamitha had aspirations of becoming a manga artist. Confused, Kamitha asked who told her that. Yuko chimed in, saying it was Ms. Masami who praised Kamitha and said he'd make a great manga artist. Hikari then asked if it was true. Kamitha explained that Masami was just speculating since he had never drawn manga before. They offered Kamitha a seat and he felt relieved. At first, he thought they were going to tease him. Hikari suggested he use the pen name Emerald Sensei. Puzzled, Kamitha asked why that name. Hikari said it was because he had immorally stared at the desk she had been sitting on for far too long. Embarrassed, Kamitha realized Hikari had noticed. Yukie joked that Kamitha might become famous if he drew adult manga, and Yuko excitedly said she couldn't wait to get an autograph from the next big adult manga artist. Kamitha, flustered, told them not to decide his future for him, especially since he was still asking Ikuo for help to pass his classical literature exams. They teased him further, joking that he and Ikuo might be a couple because they were always together, even sharing drinks from the vending machine. Kamitha denied it vehemently, insisting he was neither homo nor immoral, but they just laughed and remained unconvinced. Later in the library, Kamitha and Ikuo were studying together when Hikari approached them, asking if Ikuo could also help her with classical literature. She admitted she was struggling with the subject and added that failing any subject during the finals would mean she couldn't join her family's summer vacation. She begged Ikuo, offering to buy him 3 cans of Panda Cocoa. Ikuo hesitated, saying it was hard to teach someone without knowing their current level. Hikari suggested that he give her a quiz to figure it out. Kamitha tried to signal Ikuo to refuse, but a sharp glare from Hikari made him nervous, and he reluctantly said he didn't mind. Ikuo finally agreed, and they ended up studying together. During gym class, the climbing club president and his friend were caught spying on Hikari as she played basketball. Ruse, the student council president, caught them and chased them away. Watching the scene, Kamitha remarked to Ikuo that the climbing club president seemed to have a huge crush on Hikari. Ikuo then asked Kamitha if he liked Hikari as well. Flustered, Kamitha denied it, saying Hikari was the one always teasing him. Ikuo commented that it was better to be teased than disliked because if Hikari ever hated Kamitha, every girl in the class would turn against him. Unlike Kamitha and Ikuo, Hikari was quite popular. Ikuo mentioned he once saw Hikari eating ramen with her sister when they spotted her walking with a bearded man who seemed too young to be her father. Ikuo's sister was convinced they were dating. Kamitha speculated that Hikari might have a thing for older men. When Ikuo asked if Kamitha was upset, Kamitha replied that dating adults felt like an entirely different world. Trying to change the subject, he redirected their focus to studying at the library. Kamitha worked hard to prepare for his finals, studying both at the library and at home. Tomoe brought snacks to his room and expressed how proud she was of her younger brother's dedication. When finals week arrived, Kamitha managed to handle his exams well. The results were posted on the announcement board, and Kamitha earned a good rank, even beating Hikari and Yukie. Yuko comforted Yukie, saying she'd forget all about her test scores while swimming in the ocean. She then asked Kamitha if he could teach her sometime before leaving with Yukie. Ikuo noted that Hikari seemed to have passed all her subjects. Suddenly, Kyoko approached Kamitha, commenting on how popular he seemed among the girls. Kamitha dismissed the idea, explaining that he was only talking about test scores with his classmates. However, Kyoko remarked that such conversations never happened back in middle school, which left her impressed. Before she could say more, Makoto waved at Kyoko, and she left after telling Kamitha to help her study next time. Kamitha thanked Ikuo for helping him study. Ikuo mentioned that his cram school was organizing a summer seminar, a 2-week study retreat at a mountain resort, and invited Kamitha to join. Kamitha admitted he wanted to have fun for once, mentioning how long it had been since he hung out with Araki. Instead, he suggested that Ikuo join him for a day at the arcade in the neighboring town. Ikuo agreed, but encouraged Kamitha to at least consider the summer seminar. That day, Kamitha, Ikuo, and Araki went to the arcade to play. After finishing their games, they started talking about them. Ikuo mentioned that Araki seemed so laid back, unlike Miyame Toru, even though they were both taking the same tests. Araki said he would help with his family business and that he planned to go on a 3-day, 2-night trip with the part-time workers during the summer. Araki added that he actually wanted to take care of Usagi, but the second-year girls said they wouldn't go if Araki didn't join. Ikuo asked if those girls were his classmates, and Araki clarified that they were Yukie, Yuko, and Hikari. Kamitha and Ikuo were surprised, and just as Kamitha was about to say something, Ikuo stopped him. Araki then asked if they wanted to join the trip as well. Ikuo teased Kamitha, saying he was just jealous that Araki was also popular with the second-year girls. Araki seemed confused and reminded them that Kamitha should already know his preferences. He then went back into the arcade. Kamitha, still confused, remarked that Hikari already had a boyfriend but was going on a trip with another guy. Ikuo laughed, saying that Hikari probably used studying as an excuse to prepare for a group dating trip. Ikuo added that the dynamics of the girls in their class were important. What mattered was that if Araki didn't join the trip, the third-year guys would hold a grudge. Ikuo then followed Araki back into the arcade, while Kamitha decided to go home. On his way back, Kamitha noticed a new pastry shop and thought about buying some sweets for Tomoe another time. Then he saw Hikari working a part-time job with the bearded man Ikuo had mentioned before. Kamitha was surprised and thought Hikari was too young to be dating someone like that. He considered that if he tried harder, he might be able to get a girlfriend or two. But when his eyes fell on a less attractive girl nearby, he changed his mind. Watching Hikari work, Kamitha thought she was incredible and always seemed to be a few steps ahead of him. He didn't want to stay the same, so he called Ikuo and told him he'd join the summer seminar. That night, Kamitha was packing for the seminar when Tomoe knocked on his door, letting him know she finished using the bath. She commented on how much work it took to prepare for the seminar. Kamitha sighed and admitted he felt uneasy because it was a prestigious prep course with students from all over the country, and the only person he knew there was Ikuo. Tomoe reassured him, saying it was a chance to meet some cute girls from other schools. Kamitha blushed and said he wasn't going there to meet girls. Tomoe laughed and praised him for spending his summer vacation studying. She handed him a box of mushroom-shaped chocolates as a gift, which made Kamitha happy. He believed everything would go well as long as he had his favorite chocolate. He thanked Tomoe. Tomoe told him she had gone yukata shopping with Toru that day and had found the chocolates by chance. Kamitha asked if Tomoe planned to wear the yukata to the fireworks festival with Toru. He joked about not knowing who should be focusing on exams. Tomoe smiled and said she wanted to enjoy her final fireworks festival as a high schooler. That day, Kamitha and Ikuo boarded a bus to attend the summer seminar. They arrived at a lodge located in the mountains, where many high school students from various schools were already gathered. Kamitha noticed two girls chatting nearby, mentioning that the place even had a swimming pool. Ikuo reassured Kamitha that there were many students just like them, so Kamitha shouldn't worry about it being his first seminar. Kamitha felt confident that if he stayed motivated, he could catch up to the others. Ikuo was glad to see Kamitha's spirits lifted again. Kamitha believed it was the mushroom shake chocolates he ate on the bus that gave him energy. Suddenly, Kamitha spotted the shadow of a girl wearing a doTERRA, a type of Japanese winter coat, in the upstairs window. Ikuo dismissed the idea, saying there was no way someone would wear a doTERRA in the summer, but Kamitha was startled when the girl suddenly disappeared. Ikuo teased him, saying it might be the ghost of a test taker who had jumped to their death, a story often told at such seminars. Kamitha begged Ikuo to stop, fearing he wouldn't be able to sleep later. Just then, a staff member firmly instructed everyone to head to the conference room for an orientation about the facilities and schedule. The students filed into the room, but one boy tried to sneak out. The staff member quickly grabbed him and dragged him back in. Ikuo was surprised to learn that some students were forced to attend the seminar, and he jokingly warned Kamitha to keep a low profile. That night, Ikuo asked Kamitha how his placement test went. Kamitha admitted he ranked last because he had underestimated the difficulty, thinking it would only cover basic material. Meanwhile, Ikuo was placed in the elite class, alongside the girl they had seen earlier. Her score was far higher than Ikuo's, leading him to suspect she might be a top student from a prestigious school. Kamitha felt naive for thinking he was ready for the seminar. Ikuo encouraged him to rest up for the next day. As Kamitha lay on his futon, he regretted coming to the seminar. He imagined what it would have been like to go to the beach with Hikari instead. In his daydream, Hikari fed him grilled kalbi, and the thought made him blush. Shaking off the fantasy, Kamitha refocused on his goal of improving himself during the seminar. Determined, Kamitha opened the window and declared to the night sky that he would complete the summer seminar no matter what. Suddenly, a beetle crawled into the room, and before Kamitha could react, a girl's hand appeared at the window, startling him. He immediately thought of the ghost story about the test taker. The girl crawled through the window and into Kamitha's room. She was shivering and seemed to need help. Panicked, Kamitha let out a hysterical scream. Kamitha was startled when a girl crawled into the window of his lodge room. He immediately remembered the ghost story about an exam taker who jumped. The girl was shivering and needed help, which made Kamitha scream hysterically. The girl turned out to be Hikari, who asked for a towel. Kamitha, still in shock, questioned if the Hikari before him was a ghost. Hikari sarcastically invited him to check her body to make sure. Hikari then asked why Kamitha was staying at the lodge. Kamitha replied by saying it was his room. Hikari clarified her question, asking why he was attending the summer seminar. Had he done something wrong? Kamitha explained that he came because Ikuo invited him. He then asked what happened to Hikari. Hikari revealed that she had been kidnapped in a car and brought to that place. Hearing the word kidnapped, Kamitha imagined Hikari tied up looking sensual. He quickly dismissed the inappropriate thought and asked who had kidnapped her. Hikari explained that it was her parents. They had caught her working a part-time job and decided to confine her during the summer break. She went on to say that when she told her parents about her plans to go on a group date trip with Yukie and Yuko, they got angry and dragged her to a hotel in the middle of the forest. Kamitha admitted he had suspected that Hikari had lied about her family vacation. Hikari retorted that no girl would openly share details about her love life, especially since there was no benefit in giving Kamitha a rundown of her summer plans. She looked annoyed. Kamitha realized that the more he pressed Hikari about it, the more irritated she became, like a cornered animal. He then asked if she was planning to leave the mountain dressed like that. Hikari replied that she was. She hadn't expected there to be no bus stops nearby, and her phone had been confiscated by her parents, so she had no choice but to wait for the rain to stop. She also shared how she had been chased by a wild deer, which made her scramble up the open window without thinking. Kamitha accidentally noticed her curvy figure and immediately apologized, saying he wasn't thinking anything inappropriate. At the same time, Hikari apologized for soaking Kamitha's chair. Suddenly, she sneezed. Kamitha handed her a tissue and suggested she change her clothes before catching a cold. Unfortunately, all of Hikari's clothes were wet. She complained that her parents had replaced her BBQ grill with textbooks. Kamitha unintentionally glanced at Hikari's chest, which she noticed, startling him. Hikari mentioned again that all her clothes were soaking wet, prompting Kamitha to suggest borrowing some from the nearby girls. Hikari assumed Kamitha was there with female friends, but he clarified that he wasn't. She admitted that she was more afraid of the police than ghosts in that place. In other words, if a guy showed up in the middle of the night asking to borrow a girl's clothes, she'd probably call the cops. Hikari then asked to borrow Kamitha's clothes. She measured his size by patting his backside and comparing it to hers, concluding that their sizes were similar. She borrowed his gym clothes until hers dried. Kamitha warned her that his gym clothes were sweaty. Hikari sniffed them and said they didn't smell that bad. Kamitha panicked as Hikari sniffed his clothes but allowed her to borrow them. Hikari thanked him and left the room. Kamitha still couldn't believe she walked out with his gym clothes. He even wondered if she'd wear her underwear underneath them. That night, Kamitha dreamed of Hikari repeatedly sniffing him. The next morning, Kamitha was still puzzled about why he had such a strange dream. He entered his basic class, doubting that Hikari would be there. He didn't recognize any of the students in the class, making it difficult to blend in with the situation. During lunch break, Kamitha ran into Ikuo and told him about what had happened the night before. He mentioned that it had left him restless, making it hard to get a good night's sleep. Ikuo was equally surprised to learn that Hikari was attending the summer seminar. Apparently, she wasn't in either the basic or elite class. Out of the blue, Hikari approached Kamitha and Ikuo, greeting them with her usual cheerful tone. They ended up sitting at the same table. Her new friend was Yoshida Mako. Hikari and Makoto were in what they jokingly referred to as the grade recovery class, a special class created just for the two of them. It turned out they were both labeled as troublemakers and had been imprisoned during the last test. Hikari was grateful for Moko's company, saying that if Mako weren't there, she would have been stuck alone with a creepy older man carrying a bamboo sword. Ikuo chimed in, questioning why that instructor insisted on such an outdated look, pointing out that people like that were not well received these days. Mako suggested that maybe the instructor dressed that way to appear intimidating. Ikuo dismissed the idea, saying the outfit was simply over the top. Mako speculated that the instructor might actually be a nice guy, but Hikari disagreed. To her, the instructor was infuriating because he had punished her by making her clean the women's restroom after she escaped from the hotel. Hikari then turned to Kamitha and asked if she could borrow his gym clothes until she was done cleaning the toilets. That's when Mako realized that the oversized clothes Hikari was wearing belonged to Kamitha. Kamitha was taken aback to learn that Hikari was wearing his clothes for such a task, but he said he didn't mind as long as they didn't get too dirty. Ikuo teased Kamitha, wondering why he seemed happy about it. Mako reassured Kamitha that even if the clothes got dirty, he could just use the coin laundry service to wash them. Hikari was surprised to hear about this service and said she'd be ready to escape the place as soon as her clothes were dry. Hikari then extended her hand to Kamitha and gave him some candy. Noticing that he looked sleepy, she told him it would help him stay awake, especially since the lessons after lunch could make anyone drowsy. Kamitha thanked her, admitting that he was still frustrated by his poor placement test results. Despite that, he resolved to do his best for the rest of the seminar, though he doubted he'd have casual conversations with Hikari like this again when the second semester started. After the break, they all returned to their respective classes. Hikari and Mako spent their lesson with the strict instructor. Later, Hikari began cleaning the women's restroom. The instructor warned her that if she tried escaping from the hotel again, her punishment would escalate. He even threatened her with something ridiculous, like being forced to eat a cleaning rag. Exhausted, Hikari lamented how dull the seminar was turning out to be. Mako suggested they take a bath to relax. While chatting, Hikari asked Mako to teach her how to use the laundry machine since she had never done her own laundry before. Her mom had always taken care of it. Hikari was thrilled when she finally learned how to wash her clothes. She thanked Mako, saying she felt like her appeal as a woman had increased because of this newfound skill. Mako confessed that she also dreamed of one day doing laundry for her boyfriend. She casually mentioned that some of the other students were gossiping about Hikari, saying she must be dating Kamitha because she had been seen wearing his gym clothes. Hikari laughed, finding the rumors amusing. She teased that Kamitha had looked a little too eager when he saw her in his gym clothes. She added that she hoped the scent of her body would disappear from the clothes soon. Joking further, she called Kamitha's tastes strange, saying he probably imagined her face in some perverted scenarios. Shiken described him as being brutal. Meanwhile, Kamitha was standing in front of a vending machine about to buy a coffee milk drink. Suddenly, he overheard two girls, Heidama and Marubushi, talking nearby. Tuka was gossiping, calling the girl wearing the high school gym clothes a slut, which meant they were talking about Hikari. They were annoyed by how Hikari was being all lovey-dovey with her boyfriend during lunch. They were sick of seeing her flaunt her affection like that, and they thought she was just showing off her mixed school background in front of students from an all-girls school like them. They suspected that it was all a strategy by Hikari to distract them. Miu was already irritated with Hikari because the night before she had seen Hikari leave her boyfriend's room and even the corridor was wet from her footprints. Miu felt like Hikari was showing off as if she had done something inappropriate in her boyfriend's room. Tuka had even overheard Hikari's boyfriend telling her to put it all in, and the window was still open. Kamitha suddenly yelled out, surprising them all. He shouted that he and Hikari had never done anything inappropriate. Kamitha tried to explain what had really happened with Hikari the night before, but they didn't get it. Miu even accused Kamitha of being inappropriate with a vending machine. Kamitha clarified that he had only lent Hikari his gym clothes because she didn't have any spare clothes. Just then, Hikari appeared, calling out to Kamitha casually and handing him back his gym clothes, still warm from being on her. Mako joked that Hikari had washed the clothes for the first time just for Kamitha and asked Kamitha to praise her. Hikari continued acting like they were a couple, and Kamitha was confused by her sudden change in attitude. He suspected that something must have happened when Hikari was cleaning the restroom. Hikari's words only made Miu more convinced that she and Kamitha had been up to something inappropriate. Miu even told Tuka that they shouldn't let Hikari get away with this. Kamitha insisted that it wasn't true and that Hikari was only washing the clothes she had borrowed from him. Miu and Tuka left, but Kamitha reminded them about their drinks that they had left behind, to which Miu thanked him. Kamitha was still puzzled about Hikari's changing behavior, but Hikari reassured him, saying she was fine. She even asked if Kamitha had been doing something inappropriate with the vending machine. Kamitha denied it, saying that he was just clearing up the misunderstanding with Miu and Tuka. Hearing other students approaching, Hikari quickly pulled Kamitha inside to keep them from being seen. She returned Kamitha's gym clothes and thanked him. The clothes still felt warm, like they had just come off her body. Kamitha thanked Hikari for washing them. He then asked why they had to hide inside. Hikari explained that she didn't want Kamitha to get caught up in any weird rumors because of her. She figured people would gossip about her washing Kamitha's clothes, and rumors about them being inappropriate in a room together were ideal. According to Hikari, it was probably just stress from studying too much. Kamitha couldn't believe that people thought he and Hikari were a couple involved in something inappropriate. Hikari laughed, admitting that she had played around with Malko's misunderstanding earlier with her strange comments. Hikari felt bad that Kamitha was getting dragged into all of this because of her. Kamitha asked if it was true that Hikari had never done her own laundry before, and she confirmed that it was. He also asked if she ever did any housework. Hikari admitted that sometimes she made snacks in the middle of the night. Kamitha mentioned that his older sister also sometimes made him snacks. Hikari proudly said that she had confidence in her cooking skills, but it seemed like Kamitha didn't believe her. Hikari got a little annoyed and promised to prove it by making Kamitha a snack that very night. She said she would go find the ingredients later. She also needed to borrow Kamitha's clothes again because she didn't have an apron, and the clothes she was wearing were risky. They got splashed with hot oil. With that, she hurried off. Kamitha was still surprised by how Hikari, who had seemed so down the day before, was now so full of energy. It seemed that no matter the situation, she always managed to enjoy herself. That night, Hikari made some snacks and Mako kept her company while she cooked. The snacks were ready and Hikari had made Spanish omelets, a recipe she had learned from her part-time job. Ikuo asked about the tools and ingredients Hikari used. While cutting the omelet, Hikari explained that Mako had a good relationship with the cafeteria aunt, and whenever Mako wanted to make a midnight snack, the aunt would immediately give her the tools and ingredients she needed. Hikari said Mako was the type of person everyone loved. Kamitha was really happy since this was the first time a girl had made food for him, especially a girl like Hikari. They all enjoyed the snack together. Mako loved the taste and was glad she didn't eat too much for dinner. Kamitha liked the texture, and Ikuo commented that the snack had garlic, which was perfect for men. Hikari felt happy that they liked her cooking, especially since it was the first time she had made food for others. Kamitha had felt relieved ever since the summer seminar and was even impressed by Hikari's cooking skills. Mako, however, brought up the calorie count, but for Hikari, a most important thing was that the food tasted good. She didn't worry about calories as long as she exercised every day. Mako teased Kamitha, saying that it was like he already had a wife, with clothes being washed and meals being cooked for him. Hearing that, Kamitha almost choked. Ikuo offered him a drink, and Hikari asked Kamitha if he was planning to get married. Kamitha choked again, and Hikari patted his back. Ikuo remarked that Kamitha was overreacting, and that was why Hikari loved teasing him. Kamitha told Hikari to go to her room and offered to do the dishes for her, but Hikari told him just to keep an eye on things. Kamitha explained that if no one came, he would feel guilty because Hikari had done everything, from the ingredients to the washing up. Hikari replied that she was used to doing the dishes at her job, and she had planned to thank Kamitha before leaving the place. Hikari still intended to leave the hotel because, aside from not being interested, there were many things she hadn't brought with her. Kamitha then told her to wear the clothes that showed her belly button. Hikari asked if Kamitha liked belly buttons, and Kamitha admitted he did, especially hers, which was very cute. Hikari thanked him, but she felt like she looked like a mischievous child in the summer heat. Kamitha told her that he would continue lending her clothes, but he asked Hikari to stop doing such dangerous things like running away from the hotel, which was as dangerous as being chased by a wild deer that night. Hikari didn't want to trouble Kamitha, and she said it wasn't his problem. But Kamitha replied that it clearly was his problem because he was worried about her to the point that he couldn't focus on his studies. He also said he wouldn't let her just leave. Upon hearing this, Hikari turned around and called Kamitha's name. The scene seemed like it was about to turn romantic, but instead, Hikari simply handed Kamitha the plate and asked him to return it. She mentioned that since the weather was getting worse, she would stay and study a little longer. Kamitha smiled and wished her good night before heading off to return the plate. The summer seminar had been going on for a week, and Kamitha had gotten used to life at the hotel. Hikari suddenly touched Kamitha, surprising him and making the whole class turn to look at them. Kamitha asked Hikari what she wanted. Hikari said that starting that day, she and Mako would be joining the beginner class. Mako added that if they worked hard, it was definitely possible. Hikari leaned in and whispered something to Kamitha, but all the students were still staring at them. The students teased that Hikari and Kamitha were flirting in class and suggested they should study together in their room instead. Someone even joked that they wished Hikari would visit their room too. Kamitha told Hikari to ignore the comments, but Hikari unzipped her jacket and complained that the air conditioning in the room wasn't cold enough. Mako, shocked, pointed out Hikari's chest size and compared it to her own. Embarrassed, Kamitha quickly covered Hikari's chest with a book and pretended to ask her about solving the problem. Kamitha approached Hikari by the pool. Hikari asked if Kamitha had always been like that in class. Kamitha admitted he had felt offended at first too. Hikari said she felt like it was the end of the world when she first joined the class. Kamitha explained that everyone was studying hard to achieve their goals. Hikari said she felt different from everyone else in the class, but Kamitha joked that maybe she could act normally if her attractiveness wasn't so overwhelming. Kamitha suggested that Hikari would be fine as long as she didn't talk to him too much during class. Hikari said if that were the case, she wouldn't talk to him at all anymore. Kamitha laughed and Hikari asked why he joined the summer seminar. Did he have a goal too? Kamitha couldn't answer. Hikari said that studying hard and going to university wasn't such a bad idea, then invited Kamitha to return to class. The day's lessons went smoothly. That night, Kamitha studied in his room while eating instant cup noodles. He remembered Hikari's question from earlier and thought about how he couldn't tell her that he joined the summer seminar to change himself and that her teasing was making things harder. Suddenly, he heard a noise in the hallway. When Kamitha opened the door, he was shocked to see Hikari standing there. Hikari greeted him with a playful good evening in a cat-like voice. Kamitha told her to knock normally next time because he thought she was a ghost. Hikari insisted she wasn't a ghost. She was a cat at that moment. Kamitha asked why Hikari came to his room so late. Hikari said she was bored, so she came to Kamitha's room. Kamitha was confused, reminding her that earlier she said she wouldn't talk to him. Hikari explained that she didn't bring her phone and felt bored. She walked into Kamitha's room without hesitation, saying she wanted to chat to relax after the stressful day. Kamitha checked the hallway and quickly shut the door. He told Hikari that he was preparing for tomorrow's class, but Hikari noticed his empty ramen cup and said she wanted some. Kamitha apologized, saying he didn't have any left, just the leftover broth. Hikari happily drank the broth, surprising Kamitha. Kamitha couldn't believe Hikari was in his room, wearing her gym clothes and drinking his leftover ramen broth. He said he needed to focus on studying, but Hikari stared at him, making him uneasy. She teased him, saying he wasn't good at concentrating. Kamitha asked why she didn't visit Mako's room instead. Hikari had already been there. The door was open, but the room was pitch black and it seemed she had fallen asleep. Kamitha remarked that Moako was a careless girl, but Hikari suggested that maybe Moako couldn't handle the air conditioning and left the door open to sleep. Hikari then asked Kamitha if he wanted to sneak into Mako's room. Kamitha was shocked, his face turning red, which Hikari found amusing. She commented on how cute Kamitha looked. Kamitha asked if Hikari was really okay just relaxing while everyone else was studying hard in their rooms, getting farther ahead of her. Hikari, however, wasn't the type to compare herself to others. Kamitha resumed his studies while Hikari decided to join him, picking up a textbook and lying on Kamitha's bed. Kamitha's eyes wandered to Hikari's feet, which were swinging playfully above his bed. He couldn't believe there was a girl in his room and quickly tried to refocus on his studies. Suddenly, his pen slipped from his hand and fell to the floor. When Kamitha bent down to retrieve it, he started to feel restless, struggling with thoughts he couldn't control. Out of nowhere, Hikari complained about how boring everything was. She wished she could go on a beach group date instead of being stuck in the summer seminar. She talked about wanting to see the harbor tower, play with fireworks on the beach, and be flirted with by handsome guys. She asked Kamitha if he didn't think that sounded fun. Hikari then added that she wanted to wear a bikini at the beach. Kamitha admitted that Hikari would definitely look sexy in a bikini. Hikari teased him, asking if he wanted to see her in one. Kamitha, flustered, said he couldn't wait to see it. Hikari leaned in, playfully asking if he really wanted to see her in a bikini. Kamitha stammered, pointing out that she didn't even bring a swimsuit like that with her. That night, they went to the boys' bathing area. By then, it was past 9 p.m., and all the students had already left since that was the curfew for bathing. Hikari wore a bikini, while Kamitha wore Hikari's pareo. Hikari burst out laughing at the sight, saying it suited him. Kamitha told her to stop laughing since she was the one who forced him to wear it. Hikari mischievously tugged at the pareo, asking for it back. Kamitha quickly stopped her, reminding her she was the one who lent it to him in exchange for his gym clothes. Kamitha then asked why they had to go to the boys' bathing area. Hikari playfully suggested they could go to the girls' bathing area instead. Kamitha clarified that wasn't what he meant. He just didn't understand why she needed to show off her bikini in the bath area instead of just staying in his room. Hikari complained about mosquitoes in his room and said she didn't want to be cramped in a tiny bathroom with him. Hikari then asked Kamitha what he thought of her bikini. Kamitha admitted that it was tempting his willpower. Hikari told him to say it louder, and Kamitha obliged, repeating his comment louder. Hikari thanked Kamitha, saying she really wanted to be complimented by a guy on her new bikini. Apparently, her parents had mistaken it for underwear, which was why it ended up in her bag in the first place. Hikari invited Kamitha to get into the bath. She said it made her nervous knowing there were guys bathing there, even though Kamitha was with her. She laughed, saying the last time she went to the men's bath was back in grade school. She then asked Kamitha when the last time was that he went into the women's bath. Kamitha replied that it was also in grade school and asked her to change the subject. Hikari then asked if it felt weird to be in a hot spring wearing swimsuits. Kamitha admitted that it did feel a bit strange. He realized that soaking in warm water while fully clothed was indeed odd. Hikari joked that it felt like wetting your pants as a kid. Kamitha couldn't help but imagine it, and he quickly turned away. Hikari asked why Kamitha suddenly distanced himself, saying she was only joking. Kamitha felt lightheaded from all the strange things Hikari was saying. Suddenly, they heard the sound of a door opening. They panicked, realizing someone was coming into the bath. Kamitha was at a loss for what to do, but Hikari told him to handle it while she held her breath and dove underwater. It turned out to be the instructor who came in to soak in the bath. She asked Kamitha what he was doing in the bath so late. Kamitha greeted her nervously. The instructor reminded him that it was past the students' bath time. Kamitha, thinking fast, said he wanted to have a chat with her while they bathed together. The instructor frowned and reminded him that such interactions were against the rules. She told him to leave and return to his room. Kamitha was worried the instructor would suspect something if she saw him leaving the bath wearing Hikari's pareo. He stepped out anyway, but not before trying to think of a way to keep Hikari hidden. The instructor was shocked when she saw Kamitha wearing the pareo. She called it inappropriate, particularly since something appeared to bulge beneath it. Embarrassed, Kamitha offered to scrub the instructor's back for her. The instructor, startled, quickly made up an excuse, saying she needed to finish grading exams and that she hadn't sweat much that day. She left the bath, and Kamitha finally breathed a sigh of relief. Hikari surfaced to catch her breath, asking where the instructor had gone. Kamitha told her she had already left. Hikari asked how Kamitha had managed to get rid of her, and Kamitha replied that he wasn't sure why the instructor left. Hikari teased him, calling him an amazing guy for handling the situation so well. Suddenly, Hikari fainted, and Kamitha rushed to help her. That night, Kamitha walked Hikari back to her room. Hikari asked why he was escorting her when she only felt a little dizzy in the bath. Kamitha explained that it was the first time he'd seen someone faint in front of him, and he couldn't help but worry. Hikari teased Kamitha, asking why he would dress someone who fainted. Kamitha denied it, saying she had dressed herself. Hikari laughed, asking if Kamitha wanted to see her room. She invited him in and turned on the light, but she immediately blushed upon realizing her underwear was hanging in plain view. She quickly turned off the light, flustered. Kamitha said he wanted to go back to his room, but Hikari stopped him. Kamitha assured her he hadn't seen or smelled anything. Hikari then suggested they go outside to get some fresh air. They went near the swimming pool, and Hikari asked if she had overdone it that day. Bathing with Kamitha had made her nervous. Kamitha replied that he always felt nervous no matter where he was. Suddenly, they saw a deer. Hikari was scared it might chase her again, but fortunately, there was a fence so the deer couldn't get close. Kamitha threw a small ball at it and the deer ran away. He explained that deer are nocturnal animals and probably came there to look for food. He then teased Hikari, comparing her to the deer since she also loved midnight snacks. Hikari got annoyed and said it wasn't fair to compare her to a deer. Kamitha quickly apologized. She smiled and remarked that she had learned a lot about him during the summer seminar, but he still didn't seem to understand her. Kamitha then asked if it was easy for girls to lie, referring to how Hikari had wanted to attend a group date, but had said it was a family trip instead. Hikari argued that it wasn't a lie since she might actually go on a family trip when she has a family in the future. Kamitha admitted he didn't get how her mind worked, adding that girls in love were truly unbeatable. Hikari, in turn, teased Kamitha for being too simple-minded, saying that group date trips were more complicated than he thought. Kamitha asked if she liked Araki, who was quite popular. Hikari playfully accused Kamitha of being jealous of Araki. Kamitha denied it, saying that anything about Araki was confidential. Kamitha then asked if the chef at her part-time job was her boyfriend. Hikari was surprised and asked when Kamitha had gone to her workplace. She suspected him of revealing her secret job. Kamitha denied this, saying he had no idea what she was talking about. Hikari explained that the school had informed her parents after someone reported her to the disciplinary committee. She admitted it was her fault for working secretly. Kamitha mentioned seeing her talking with the chef. Hikari clarified that the person Kamitha was referring to was the shop owner, who was not her boyfriend and was in fact married. Hikari then suggested they go back since the weather was getting cold. The summer seminar eventually came to an end. Kamitha and Ikuo boarded the bus together. Ikuo reflected on how lost he had felt when they first arrived at the seminar, and now as they were leaving, he felt sad. A lot had happened to Kamitha, especially that night he had talked with Hikari. Since then, however, Hikari hadn't spoken to him again, and Kamitha suspected she might be wary of him. Ikuo regretted not saying goodbye to Mako. Kamitha noticed Mako at a window on the upper floor, but he reassured himself that Mako wasn't a ghost. It turned out Mako had overslept and was being scolded by the instructor. Mako explained that she had rushed to wake up early to see the bus off, but the instructor called her a failure. Mako protested, saying she had even worn long clothes to avoid catching a cold during exams. The instructor lectured her about the dangers of the night wind and also scolded her for always sleeping with her door open. The instructor threatened Mako with more trouble if she failed her exams again. Frustrated, Mako reminded the instructor of her own embarrassing moment last year when Mako had kindly brought her a kendo sword and sunglasses. The instructor apologized, saying there were many strange and scary high school students. She then mentioned a close call in the bathhouse where she was almost ambushed. That evening, Hikari visited her workplace to meet the shop owner. She had quit her part-time job after her parents found out about it. The shop owner assured her that her parents must have had their reasons and encouraged her to talk things through with them. Hikari had come to the shop to seek advice from the owner. That night, she got her phone back and called Yukie to tell her everything that had happened. Yukie asked if there were any cute guys at the summer seminar, but Hikari said that everyone there was too focused on studying and had a serious vibe. Yukie teased her, asking if Hikari liked anyone there. Hikari, annoyed, said that the only things worth mentioning there were an old man with a kendo sword and a deer. She then asked about Yukie's vacation, but Yukie said it had been nothing special. When Hikari checked her phone, she found a ton of missed calls in her call log. The next day, Kamitha headed to school with Kyoko. She commented that if Kamitha's skin got a little tanned, he'd probably become more popular. However, Kamitha thought girls preferred guys with fairer skin. Kyoko expressed concern about Kamitha isolating himself after the summer seminar. She said he shouldn't waste his precious vacation time and suggested that he should have gone to the city to flirt with girls, offering to help him out with that. As they walked, Kamitha noticed Hikari staring at Araki, who was walking with Yukie. He found it odd, wondering when Araki had become close with Yukie. Kamitha couldn't shake off the feeling that Hikari was still suspicious of him for leaking her secret. The new school semester had started, but Kamitha was feeling down because Hikari had been ignoring him. At the vending machine, Ikuo approached Kamitha looking unusually cheerful. Curious, Kamitha asked what happened to make Ikuo so happy. Ikuo shared that he had finally reconnected with an old friend after a long time. Kamitha rarely saw Ikuo in such high spirits. Ikuo then asked if there was a girl Kamitha liked. The question caught Kamitha off guard and he quickly denied having any crushes. Unconvinced, Ikuo kept teasing him, but Kamitha maintained his denial. Ikuo remarked that having someone to like would make life feel more beautiful, leaving Kamitha wondering why Ikuo had suddenly become so upbeat. Meanwhile, Hikari, Yukie, and Yuko were chatting that morning. Yukie bragged about how she had invited Araki to walk to school together so they could spend some time alone. She proudly shared that she'd been getting cozy with Araki, although she hadn't confessed her feelings to him yet. Kamitha saw the three of them talking, and he overheard Hikari saying that if she had a boyfriend, she would also act lovey-dovey with him. Hearing this, Kamitha couldn't help but imagine Hikari acting cute as his girlfriend. Later, Kamitha found a note from Hikari asking him to meet her behind the school. Curious, he went to the designated spot where Hikari approached him. Kamitha asked why she wanted to meet him there. Hikari explained that she wanted to return his gym uniform. She also asked Kamitha to keep their time together at the summer seminar a secret because she didn't want Yuki finding out they had spent time together. Kamitha, however, suspected her motives. He asked if Hikari was worried that Yukie might try to steal Araki from her if the rumor spread. Hikari denied it, but Kamitha wasn't convinced. If that wasn't the case, why didn't she just return the uniform in class? He also questioned her change in behavior after their conversation at the hotel pool. Hikari admitted she had her reasons, but Kamitha pressed further, asking if she was embarrassed about being seen with him. Hikari explained that when Yukie called her, she had asked if Hikari had met any nice guys. Yukie's intuition was sharp, so Hikari panicked and lied, saying she had only encountered a deer. Kamitha couldn't understand Hikari's behavior since she was usually so straightforward. Frustrated, Hikari grabbed the gym uniform back, but Kamitha refused to take it unless she gave him a proper explanation. Suddenly, Makoto appeared and apologized for interrupting them, jokingly asking if they were in the middle of a breakup. Both Kamitha and Hikari immediately denied it in unison. Kamitha recognized Makoto as one of Kyoko's friends and a member of the disciplinary committee. She explained that she was patrolling the area because couples had been caught engaging in inappropriate behavior around the school. Hikari clarified that Makoto had misunderstood. She and Kamitha were not dating. Makoto explained that she had suspected otherwise because the back of the school and the pump house were popular spots for couples to hang out. She also noted that summer seemed to make students more adventurous, and the disciplinary committee had been busy since the start of the semester. Makoto went on to share that she had recently caught a couple in the rabbit shed. The situation was so extreme that she fled without even reprimanding them. Hikari, curious, asked what exactly the couple had been doing. Makoto hesitantly admitted that they were using carrots and celery inappropriately. Both Hikari and Kamitha were shocked. Changing the subject, Makoto mentioned that before summer break, the disciplinary committee had received a report about a student working a part-time job. Kamitha asked if the job was at a Spanish bar, but Makoto refused to reveal any details. Hikari then threatened to report Makoto to her supervisor if she didn't perform her duties properly. Under pressure, Makoto reluctantly admitted that the part-time job was indeed at a bar, though she didn't know the specifics. Hikari invited Kamitha to leave with her, and as they walked away, Makoto shouted after them, begging them to keep her involvement a secret. Hikari and Kamitha hurried to the rabbit shed, where they caught Yukie and Araki together. Hikari asked Yukie to talk with her, while Kamitha questioned what Araki was doing there. Araki nonchalantly replied that he and Yukie were playing around with the rabbits, and Yukie was even planning to feed him a carrot mouth-to-mouth. Yukie commented that Hikari didn't know how to read the room. Before leaving, Araki teased Kamitha, saying he seemed to have two girls vying for him. After Araki left, Yukie asked Kamitha if he was close to Araki. Kamitha explained that they had been friends since middle school. Hikari then confronted Yukie, asking why she had reported her to the disciplinary committee. Yukie finally admitted that she had been caught. Hikari clarified that she wasn't trying to blame Yukie. It was true she had broken the rules by secretly working, but she wanted to understand why Yukie had gone as far as to report her. Yukie confessed that she suspected Araki liked Hikari. Because of that, she felt Hikari would interfere with her attempts to get closer to Araki. Yukie explained that she had found out about Hikari's part-time job when she happened to see her working at a new bakery she visited. Knowing how strict Hikari's parents were, Yukie reported her in hopes of ruining Hikari's chances of going on the group date trip. Yukida even admitted that she struggled to hold back her laughter when Hikari had called her, saying her parents had kidnapped her and taken her to the remote mountains. Hikari had intended to help Yukie, but now Yukie asked if Hikari thought she had cheated. Hikari responded that Yukie wasn't cheating. She had simply done what she needed to do to pursue the person she liked. Hikari admitted that she hadn't expected love to make someone so unstoppable. She encouraged Yukie to go for what she wanted because being bold for love often leads to victory. Yukie smiled and Hikari thanked her for being honest. With that, Hikari ended their conversation. Kamitha was surprised at how easily Hikari resolved the matter. She explained that it didn't matter anymore because Araki had already been taken. Yukie then asked why Kamitha was with Hikari in the first place. Hikari explained that she initially suspected Kamitha of reporting her to the disciplinary committee, but she also wanted Kamitha to know the truth. Yukie apologized to Kamitha, joking that being suspected by Hikari must have been terrifying. Kamitha reassured her, saying that if Araki found a human girlfriend, he would always support him. Hikari agreed. Later, Hikari invited Kamitha to the bakery where she worked part-time. She made him a snack as an apology for suspecting him earlier. Kamitha loved the food. It was something he had never tried before. Hikari felt fortunate to have the chance to apologize now because she realized it was getting harder to talk to Kamitha as time went on. Kamitha asked when Hikari had started suspecting Yukie. Hikari revealed that Yukie was the only one who hadn't called her after she canceled her plans on the day of the event. Plus, Yukie's sharp intuition would have made her realize that Hikari and Kamitha had spent time together during the summer seminar. That's why Hikari had been acting distant toward Kamitha. Kamitha shrugged, saying he wouldn't have cared even if people found out or started gossiping. He suddenly remembered the hiking club leader who had a massive crush on Hikari and silently felt relieved that no one knew about his closeness to her. Kamitha then asked why Hikari hadn't told him about her suspicions earlier. Hikari explained that she hadn't been able to say anything without solid evidence until they caught Yukie and Araki at the rabbit shed. Kamitha wondered aloud if Hikari had intentionally dragged him into the situation. Hikari got emotional, saying she felt like her childhood friend had grown up by going to the beach and maturing, while she was the only one left behind. Finally, Hikari handed Kamitha back his gym uniform, bringing closure to everything that had happened during the summer seminar. Kamitha smiled and suggested they go to the beach together right then because they could grow up too. That evening, they went to the beach together. It had been a long time since Hikari had smelled the salty sea air. They saw a large dog playing nearby and Hikari was eager to join in. She loved animals, but her parents didn't share the sentiment. Kamitha suggested they play catch with a small ball he had brought, the same one he used to scare off the deer that night. After their conversation at the pool, Kamitha had gone back there several times, hoping to run into Hikari again. The ball was something he'd picked up during one of those visits. Hikari apologized to him and then grabbed the ball, running off with it. She threw it in his direction, but the wind carried it into the water. Kamitha quickly waded in to retrieve it, but as he was heading back to shore, he suddenly stumbled and fell into the water. Hikari rushed to check if he was okay, but Kamitha simply said he wanted to keep playing catch. Hikari laughed. She reached out her hand to help him up, but a wave knocked them both back into the water, soaking their clothes completely. Kamitha apologized, saying it was his fault Hikari got drenched. As he looked at her, he accidentally noticed her wet shirt had turned translucent, clearly revealing her bra. Embarrassed, Hikari quickly covered her chest. Hikari suddenly remembered her recent fascination with bathing in her school uniform at the hotel spa. It was a strange habit, but she found it oddly comforting. Kamitha joked that wearing your own uniform for something like that wasn't exciting. Hikari teased him, saying that he should try wearing Tomoe's uniform on Friday night instead, just to see how immoral it would feel. When Kamitha realized she was joking, he said that Hikari was being inappropriate. She countered, saying he was the one being indecent. Then she tackled him, knocking him to the ground. Hikari looked at Kamitha and asked bluntly, "Doesn't this excite you?" She admitted that she was feeling a little excited herself. She mentioned how masculine Kamitha had seemed that day behind the school building. Kamitha, caught off guard, muttered that he couldn't really understand her because there was sand in his ear. Hikari leaned in, touched his ear, and made him open his mouth slightly. Before he realized it, she kissed him. There they were, kissing on the shore, with Kamitha feeling stunned. His ears and mouth felt as if they were sealed by her touch. As night fell, they stayed on the beach. Kamitha wanted to confess his feelings, but he felt nervous. Meanwhile, Hikari changed into Kamitha's gym clothes again. Kamitha finally worked up the courage to say what was on his mind, but before he could finish, Hikari stepped back toward the water. She confessed that this was her first time spending the night away from home and talked about how much she appreciated her parents. They were the ones who cleaned, did laundry, and cooked meals. Without them, she might not have been able to handle it all. Even though Hikari wasn't confident in her cooking skills, seeing Kamitha enjoy her food made her happy. It inspired her to learn how to cook better and become more self-assured. Hikari wanted to be an independent woman and decided to ask the bakery owner to refer her to a place where she could live and study cooking. Kamitha asked if she still planned to go to college. Hikari explained that it was because of him that she was able to decide her future path. However, the place she wanted to go was far away, meaning they wouldn't see each other much after graduation. She shared that instead of just being with someone who made her happy, she wanted to make others happy through her cooking. Hikari didn't want to do things halfway. For her, that was more important than dating. Kamitha reassured her, saying she could make friends anywhere and that he believed she would succeed. He suggested she could still learn to cook in Kibyo. Hikari laughed, saying he looked adorable, being so surprised by her decision. Kamitha felt a little sad, thinking that he wished he could be more mature and have everything figured out like her. Hikari admitted that finding a place willing to train a beginner while also paying her wasn't easy. Hikari asked Kamitha not to feel burdened, saying it was thanks to him that she had been able to decide what she wanted to do after graduating high school. Kamitha responded that they should remain friends. Hikari smiled at him, confident that Kamitha would understand. Kamitha thought about how they had grown closer, yet Hikari suddenly seemed to be pulling away. He remembered her saying that those who dared for love would win, but now she was acting distant. Kamitha couldn't understand how someone who spoke so boldly about love could be so practical when it came to real life. Hikari leaned in and kissed Kamitha on the cheek, promising to do her best. In that moment, for the first time, Kamitha thought he could truly hear his own heart. One day, Yuki had decided to break up with Araki because every time they played house, she was always assigned the role of the baby. Araki, on the other hand, only cared about his rabbit playing the role of the mother. After the breakup, Yukie immediately reconciled with Hikari. Kamitha wasn't even sure if the reason behind the breakup would ever come to light. Although Kamitha and Hikari exchanged email addresses, he hadn't received a single message from her yet. Kamitha studied with Ikuo at the library. Ikuo noticed something different about him, but Kamitha avoided talking about it. Kamitha never confessed his feelings to Hikari that night, even though he thought they had grown closer since the summer seminar. No matter how many times Kamitha tried to approach her, Hikari seemed to distance herself even more. Eventually, Kamitha decided on his future career path. 5 years passed. Kamitha was now a nutritionist student and worked part-time at the cafe where Hikari had once worked. That day, the cafe owner asked Kamitha if he had received a job offer from a food industry company in town, saying it meant he was one step closer to becoming a certified nutritionist. Kamitha replied that his future still felt far off because he wasn't yet professional. The cafe owner then asked if Kamitha knew anyone in the food business besides himself. Kamitha admitted that he did, explaining that this was why he had kept his desire to become a nutritionist a secret. The owner revealed that he was expecting a baby soon, meaning he would be spending less time at the cafe. He added that he had found someone to help Kamitha. This person had once worked odd jobs at the cafe and had returned from their studies in Spain. They were now a specialist in dishes like omelets and venison. The owner said the person would arrive after lunch. Not long after, a young woman walked into the cafe and greeted Kamitha. It was Hikari. Hikari asked if Kamitha was the college student working part-time at the cafe. Kamitha nodded, confirming it. That day, Kamitha was playing the deer game with Ikuo and Araki. Kamitha won the game and got a pure deer claw item, which he showed to Ikuo and Araki. Araki then asked Kamitha to give the item to him, but Kamitha refused, saying that it was his deer that earned it. Suddenly, Miyame Toru overheard their conversation about the pure deer claw item. Toru greeted them and asked if Araki had been secretly raising a deer. Araki admitted to it, and Ikuo said that if Toru thought they were playing an erotic game, she was completely mistaken. Kamitha explained that the Deer Love game was a training game for animals of all ages. Toru then asked if there was any item that Kamitha wanted. Kamitha asked if Toru wanted the pure deer claw item. Toru introduced herself and said she wanted to trade her item for Kamitha's pure deer claw item. Kamitha was surprised by the size of Toru's deer, and Araki even called it a deer god. Kamitha was curious about how Toru raised her deer. Toru said she had been playing the game since its release and asked if they had only just started playing. Kamitha was surprised because they had also been playing since the game was first released, and he wondered how long one would need to play to have a deer that big. Kamitha then decided to give the pure deer claw item to Toru. Toru asked to see Kamitha's deer status before she would hand over her item, but the close proximity of Toru's face made Kamitha very nervous. Toru said Kamitha's deer was a night battle expert, and Kamitha responded that deer were nocturnal animals. Suddenly, Shiori's voice was heard calling Toru to the club room. Shiori arrived with Tomoe, and Tomoe was surprised to see Kamitha, Ikuo, and Araki. They greeted Mo, who mentioned how they always play the deer game at both home and school as if they were possessed. Toru immediately called Kamitha by his name and greeted him, saying it was nice to meet him. Kamitha was surprised because Toru knew his real name. Shiori quickly pulled Toru to check her size in the club room, even though Toru hadn't decided yet to become her model. Toru apologized to Kamitha, and Kamitha reassured her that it was fine because they could trade items the next time they met. Toru promised that she would give Kamitha an item as a gift next time, and Shiori continued to pull Toru along. That night, Kamitha was playing the deer game in his room and lost. It was tough playing at a high level, and he wondered if it would be easier with Toru's deer. Kamitha thought that Toru was a calm person, and he imagined that if only his older sister had the same personality, they wouldn't fight over the bathroom every morning. Kamitha then decided he wanted to raise a deer to match Toru's, so he could be as good a gamer as she was. The next day, Kamitha and his friends went to their usual spot to play games during their school break. Araki was surprised that Toru, who was considered an esteemed student, turned out to be a gamer. He had no idea. Ikuo asked Kamitha if he was sure about giving the item to Toru. Kamitha was confident, and he believed that as a reward, they could become friends with Toru and exchange information. Even after seeing Toru's huge deer, Kamitha wasn't going to back out, and as a gamer, he wanted to show his determination. They were all shocked to see Toru lying on the bench where they usually played games. Toru had purposely come to that spot to give Kamitha an item as a thank you for his kindness and invited him to play again. After school, the four of them went to a karaoke place. Araki suggested they go there when Kamitha said they needed to find a more suitable place to exchange items. Toru wanted to sing first. Ikuo whispered to Kamitha, commenting on how Toru was singing even though they had come to exchange items. Kamitha said it was fine since they were at a karaoke place. Ikuo felt uneasy because all he and Kamitha knew were cartoon songs and game soundtracks. However, they were both surprised when Toru sang a song from the Inago Mask soundtrack and even mimicked the opening dance moves. Meanwhile, Shiori and Tomoe went to a cafe, and Shiori told Tomoe that Toru had given Kamitha an item she had made herself. Tomoe was sure that Toru must have stayed up late making it because Toru looked really sleepy that day. The waitress brought them drinks, and it turned out the waitress was Hikari, who was working part-time. Hikari didn't expect Tomoe, the Miss Santa, to show up at the cafe where she worked. She really wanted to talk to her, but she had to keep her part-time job a secret. After Toru finished singing the Inago Mask song, Araki said it was time to exchange items. However, Toru asked for a short break. She passed by Kamitha and Ikuo, who were sitting. Kamitha felt nervous when Toru walked past him and sat next to him. Seeing Kamitha enjoying his pudding a la mode, Toru asked if he liked that dessert. Kamitha said that he actually liked sweet foods. Toru then asked if she could try some. Hearing that, both Kamitha and Ikuo were surprised. Ikuo quickly said that it was almost like a kiss, but handed Toru the pudding that was still intact. Toru said she wouldn't mind if only she was the one singing. Kamitha responded that they all knew cartoon songs, so they joined in and sing too. Toru explained that she had prepared equipment for the night battle along with a bonus feature to determine the enemy's location. Kamitha was very happy because the item matched his deer's abilities, and he thanked her. Araki asked if Toru liked multiplayer games. Toru asked why Araki was asking that. Araki replied that it was because her night vision goggles would shine brightly during a duel. Toru said that most of the games she liked were multiplayer. Kamitha said that they also enjoyed multiplayer games. Araki again suggested they play together the newly launched Mirusu game. Kamitha asked if Toru wanted to play that game with them. Toru said she had already pre-ordered it. Over time, they got closer, and they went together to buy the game to play together. They started playing the game and created their characters. Kamitha chose a bear, and Ikuo asked why Kamitha wasn't using any equipment. Kamitha guessed that the high starting parameters must be the specialization of the bear. Toru used a rabbit character, and Kamitha thought her slim physique really represented Toru's image. The game began, and they agreed to start in the forest as their initial arena. When the game started, Kamitha couldn't see the others. The area he was in didn't show his friends' characters. Toru said a rabbit character was walking on a bridge. It was so hard to meet even friends in that game, let alone enemies. The image displayed in Araki's game showed Toru's rabbit character's backside as it walked. Apparently, Araki's fox kept pushing the rabbit, and they both fell off the bridge. Both the rabbit and the fox died in the game. Toru asked Araki to adjust the camera placement correctly. Araki realized that his fox character had died. Kamitha's bear character suddenly died as well. Ikuo's shooter character was immediately attacked by enemies and died too. They all lost, but they were so excited because the game was really fun. Ikuo then asked if Toru's character had the ability to detect enemies, but it turned out that Araki's character had that ability. Kamitha asked if that game wasn't Toru's favorite, and Toru said the game was really fun. The next day in the girls' changing room, Toru was changing into her sportswear with Tomoe and Shiori. Shiori praised Toru for being good at any sport and said that if she joined any extracurricular activity, she would definitely be made a regular player. However, Toru wasn't interested in extracurriculars. She just wanted to play games. Tomoe asked about the game Toru had been playing with Kamitha since last week. Toru said that playing with other kids reminded her of her middle school days because lately she had always played games alone. Shiori agreed that those memories were important and then suggested that Toru become a model at CLAPS. Toru mentioned that she had been playing the Mariusa game because she heard Shiori say her game character was cute, so she pre-ordered it. She didn't expect to be able to play with friends. Toru also mentioned that Kamitha said the same thing as Shiori, that the rabbit character represented her image very well. Shiori then said that she had already decided to sew the costume and that Toru would be the mascot. Shiori was confident that with the rabbit costume, Toru would become famous. Toru admitted that CLAPS sounded fun, but she didn't want anyone she knew to see her cosplaying. Shiori questioned who exactly Toru didn't want to be seen by at CLAPS. Toru quickly changed the subject, saying that Tomoe had lost some weight. After school, Kamitha, Ikuo, Araki, and Toru played games together. Ikuo's character managed to defeat an enemy and got a new item, a rabbit ring which increased critical hit power and evasion by 30%. The ring could be considered a vitality booster. Ikuo decided to give the rabbit ring to Toru's character, as it would be more effective for a rabbit character to wear it. Toru thanked him and said she would get a lot of critical kills. Toru then asked if Kamitha wanted the rabbit item too. Kamitha said it was fine because he hadn't really thought about it. Toru showed him a rabbit keychain she made herself, giving it to Kamitha. She had made it because she really liked the character. Araki even said he wanted one too. Kamitha quickly took it and imagined Toru cosplaying as the rabbit character. That day, they went to the game center. Araki played the claw machine, aiming for a rabbit character doll. He almost got it, but ended up with a plaster hand, which he gave to Kamitha. Araki then tried again. Kamitha noticed Toru was looking at the Guskull game, and it turned out that Toru used to play it a lot with her friends in middle school. Kamitha said that there were often weekly duels held at that place, and many famous gamers would come in the evening. Toru said she preferred not to duel and mostly played Guskull when she was in her third year of middle school. Kamitha invited Toru to play together. It turned out there were two elementary school kids who had been watching them for a while. Toru and Kamitha started playing the game. Kamitha said that Toru's targeting was unstable, probably because she hadn't played it in a while. Toru wasn't worried about it, saying she would get used to it over time. Kamitha promised to help her. Before long, they were challenged by the two elementary school kids. Kamitha didn't take them seriously, thinking that they were just two little kids playing. However, it turned out that these two elementary school kids were pretty good. Their names were Wataru and Takeshi. The game began, and Wataru successfully captured Kamitha. Wataru then said that Kamitha and Toru as a couple were ruining the view and arrogantly claimed they would definitely win. Toru told Kamitha to stay quiet. Meanwhile, Takeshi kept shooting at Toru, but she managed to dodge his shots. Toru took cover behind Wataru, who was still capturing Kamitha while Takeshi prepared to shoot at them. Kamitha wondered how it was possible that Takeshi's shots didn't hit Wataru. Wataru then asked if Takeshi had betrayed him. Toru quickly kicked Wataru and pushed him toward Takeshi, causing Kamitha to be pushed as well. Once he broke free from Wataru, he immediately started shooting at both of them. Wataru and Takeshi tried to rush Kamitha, but Toru arrived just in time and destroyed their robot bodies. The game ended, and the two elementary school kids were finally defeated. Kamitha joked, asking if they were holding back just because they were fighting against girls. He then gave the rabbit keychain to them. Kamitha told them about a crane game that was popular among high school students. The two kids left, saying that next time they wouldn't lose. Kamitha mentioned to Toru that he felt sorry for the two elementary school kids for losing. Toru, however, said that when she was in grade school, she had been treated even worse. Kamitha found it extreme when Toru kicked the dead robot bodies, saying that if she kept doing that, she might never get any more enemies. Kamitha also apologized for giving the rabbit keychain Toru made to the elementary school kids, but Toru reassured him, saying it was fine and not to worry about it. Kamitha complimented Toru for getting a headshot earlier, but Toru admitted she was nervous when she remembered getting the headshot. She hadn't expected to win while playing Guskull after so long, and it was all thanks to Kamitha. Toru promised to stop kicking the dead robot bodies and then asked Kamitha to be her partner in Guskull. Araki and Ikuo brought over some stuffed toys they had won from the claw machine. Kamitha mentioned that he had just played Guskull with Toru. Toru said she was happy because after such a long time without playing, she felt like playing with Kamitha made her stronger. Araki said he was a solo Guskull player, and Ikuo admitted that he had stopped playing Guskull after grade school. Toru said that as long as Kamitha was her partner, she felt stronger. Kamitha agreed to be her partner in Guskull, and Toru thanked him. That night, Toru took a bath, still thinking about their Guskull game earlier. She reached for the Guskull robot that was nearby. Her older brother immediately yelled at her to hurry up and get out of the bathroom. Kamitha, Toru, Araki, and Ikuo were teaming up in the game Miryusa, working together to defeat their enemies. We laid out the strategy. The rabbit would act as bait, the shooter would target the enemy's arms and legs, and when the enemy's neckties glowed, Araki's fox would cast a spell on Kamitha's bear, initiating a rolling attack. Following this plan, they successfully took down the enemy boss. Toru remarked on how strong the boss was. Ikuo noted that if Toru hadn't known the boss's strength, it might have been twice as troublesome. Toru meant that she had been able to monitor the boss thanks to the rabbit ring item that Ikuo had given her, which increased her evasion. Ikuo felt is spot on to have given it to Toru. That day to the physical education class, so she headed back to class first, with Araki thanking her as she left. Before departing, Guru invited Kamitha to play Guskull after school, and he agreed, saying he'd wait for her at the school gate later. Araki then asked Mida had been going to the game center so often lately. Kamitha explained that been playing Guskull every day to the point where his wallet was getting thin. Ikuo commented that due together in the game made it end quickly. Araki suggested that maybe Mida wasn't interested in other games and proposed they play something that didn't cost much. Kamitha agreed and asked if he knew of a game center that offered Game Grabbed. Ikuo mentioned that it wasn't tillable in Kibito, so Kamitha would need to find a substitute game as his partner. Kamitha then asked if Ikuo would with him. Ikuo replied that he'd been play a lot lately and wanted to study at home that day. At the game center, Kamitha tried Toru to play another game. He suggested they try the bus stop game and explain how to score points. However, Toru didn't seem interested and to play Guskull instead. At that time, Toru played Guskull with Iku, her partner. Araki was surprised that they won, even Scout was their first time teaming up. Ikuo was worried because Toru's playstyle, one-handed victory, could cause problems. Toru was indeed skilled, but it might make others like her. When their opponents lost, they immediately approached Toru, making Kamitha very concerned for her. Fortunately, the opponents just gave Toru a thumbs to Kamitha. This situation was more worrisome than Toriling in the game. Kamitha overheard Kyoko and Makoto discussing their foe approach and greeted them. Suddenly, Makoto was startled and tried to hide. Kyoko introduced Makoto to Kamitha, mentioning that she was on disciplinary committee at school. Makoto was upset that Kyoko had revealed this. Kamitha remarked it wouldn't be good if Ruise, the head of the disciplinary committee, found out, but Kyoko assured him that Kamitha would keep it a secret. Makoto said it was fine. She was accompanying Kyoko because she was worried about delinquents, and protecting a student from incidents was part of the disciplinary committee's role. Toru then approached them and Kyoko greeted her. Kamitha asked if Toru lost her game. It turned out Toru was going to a ring session afterward, located near Thacian. Kyoko mentioned that the tutoring place was quite famous. Toru then said her guys. Kyoko commented that Toru was very pretty and asked Kamitha if Toru was a 30 student. Kamitha confirmed that she was a third year and a friend of his older sister Moe. He mentioned that he and Toru had been playing games together lately. Kyoko then, if Kamitha was also attending tutoring, warning that if he relaxed too much because he was a second year, he might not advance to the next grade. She even teased that they might be in the same class next year. After leaving the game, Sentimito went to Toru's tutoring place to pick up a brochure. Helner was thinking about what would happen if he attended the same tutoring place as Toru. Endly, Kamitha saw Ikuo, even though he had previously said he would study at home. Kamitha became anxious of what Ikuo was doing there. He was shocked to see Ikuo and Toru enter the ring place together. Kamitha couldn't believe what he had just seen. Upon arriving home, he asked Moe for her perspective. He inquired about Ikuo. Moe mentioned that Ikuo's grades were excellent at that time, unlike in grade school. A guy as cool as Ikuo would be liked by many girls. Moe then asked if Kamitha wanted to know what others thought of him, but Kamitha quickly retreated to his room. The next day at the game center, Araki and Ikuo tried the bus road game. They lost multiple times because they couldn't operate the bus timely in traffic jams. They wondered how Kamitha could play such a difficult game. Araki vowed to beat Kamitha's high score. Meanwhile, Kamitha and Toru were waiting in line to play Gusgal. When it was their turn, Toru was well known among the kids at the game center, and they invited her to play with them. Toru asked Kamitha and he agreed, choosing to play the bus road game instead. The game center was bustling on the weekend. Kamitha couldn't get close to Toru at all. It's no surprise Toru became popular. She was a girl obsessed with winning. The line of people wanting to play with her was long, even though battling against her would be more interesting. Kamitha didn't feel like playing the bus road game and decided to go to the restroom. Suddenly, Takeshi arrived with Hikari, and they approached Toru, who was playing Gusgal. Meanwhile, Makoto was posing in the photo booth when she heard a commotion between Hikari and Toru. Hikari demanded that Toru stop bothering others around her, but Toru replied that she was just playing normally. Kamitha saw this and approached them, trying to mediate. Hikari accused Kamitha of acting like a hero when in class he was barely noticeable. Makoto intervened, asking them to keep their voices down to avoid disturbing other players. Hikari sarcastically asked if Makoto wanted to take sweet photos, to which Makoto responded with a peace sign posed in a milk bath. Hikari told her to leave, stating she was there to avenge Takeshi. Hikari then challenged Toru to play Gusgal. They prepared for the game. Toru apologized to Kamitha for involving him because of her actions. Kamitha said that if Takeshi wanted revenge, it meant he had to join the game. Toru asked if Kamitha was okay being her ally since Hikari was intimidating. Kamitha replied he was used to Hikari's behavior in class. The game began. Araki just noticed Hikari's presence, and Ikuo wondered why she was at the game center. Kamitha mentioned that the current Gusgal game was a fast-paced type. Toru planned to create distance and observe Hikari's actions. Takeshi launched an attack toward Kamitha and Toru, but they managed to dodge it. Toru then attacked Hikari, but it didn't stop her. Hikari closed in on Toru and quickly kicked her. As Hikari prepared to finish Toru off, Kamitha clung to Hikari. After breaking free from Kamitha, Hikari searched for Toru, but Kamitha attacked again, luckily having a shield. Meanwhile, Makoto was shocked by her photo booth results showing her drenched in milk. She felt the photos resembled the main character from a picture book she had read before. Suddenly, someone mentioned that the book was titled The Princess and Her Milk Company. Makoto screamed in surprise upon seeing Ruize standing in front of her. Ruize asked if Makoto was taking photos at the game center and suggested she teach Makoto how a disciplinary committee member should spend their time. Araki finally managed to achieve the highest score in the bus road game. Ikuo informed Araki that a girl was being caught by the disciplinary committee. Kamitha mentioned that the girl was someone he knew, the same girl who had come to the game center the previous day. Makoto kept apologizing to Ruize for her mistake. Ikuo then asked if they should run away too. Araki wondered why the disciplinary committee wouldn't just leave game center enthusiasts alone. The Gusgal match ended and Hikari was finally defeated. Takeshi fell silent, disappointed that Hikari couldn't help him beat Toru. Hikari patted the silent Takeshi on the back and told him to stay strong. Kamitha praised Toru's skill for winning yet again. Suddenly, Araki and Ikuo warned everyone that they had to escape and pointed toward Makoto, who was being confronted by Ruize. When Kamitha saw this, he immediately urged Toru to leave. Hikari, confused about why Kamitha and Toru were running, then noticed Makoto and Ruize. She quickly grabbed Takeshi and ran away as well. The four of them hid in a narrow alley. Hikari blamed Takeshi, saying they could have won if Takeshi had defeated Kamitha first. They continued arguing until Takeshi finally said there would be no pay raise for Hikari. Hikari quickly told him to keep that a secret. Kamitha then asked if Hikari was actually hired by a grade schooler. Hikari explained that Takeshi was the son of the diner owner where she worked part-time. Hikari kept pulling the kid's hair, saying that if she had defeated Toru, she would have gotten a raise. Toru asked if Hikari wasn't embarrassed about arguing with a little kid. Hikari snapped back, saying she didn't want to hear that from Toru. As Hikari started to walk away, she warned Kamitha not to tell anyone that she had a part-time job. She also said that if Kamitha kept hanging out with Toru, this kind of trouble was just the beginning. Toru chose to leave as well. Kamitha offered her a break and invited her to a nearby cafe. While there, he asked about Toru's relationship with Hikari. Toru explained that Hikari was her junior in middle school, and they used to play at the game center together. They were actually friends back then. Suddenly, Toru's deer game reminder went off and she asked if she could feed her deer first. Kamitha agreed and apologized for asking about things that weren't his business. Toru said that thanks to Kamitha, she had way more fun playing games now than she did in middle school. Kamitha commented that both the Miryusa game and the deer game were amazing, but Toru said it wasn't about the game itself. It was about who she played it with. Out of nowhere, Toru's game notified her that she could breed her deer with another player's deer to produce a cute offspring. Toru asked Kamitha if they should try breeding their deer together. Kamitha asked if Toru's deer was female since his was male. Toru showed him that her deer had no antlers. Kamitha immediately apologized, realizing he had assumed Toru's deer was male. Toru asked again if Kamitha wanted to go through with it, and Kamitha agreed. They proceeded with the breeding process in the game. During the process, Kamitha kept controlling his male deer to press strength, speed, and technique icons to hit the target. The success rate would determine the traits of the offspring. Toru noticed Kamitha's face turning red and asked if he was okay. It turned out Kamitha was feeling flustered about the idea of making offspring with Toru. Hearing Kamitha's ambiguous statement, Toru's face also turned red, and she told him to just do whatever he needed to do. The process finally finished, and they were surprised at how long it took. Suddenly, Toru asked for the cherry in Kamitha's glass. Kamitha was reminded of the time Toru had asked for his pudding during karaoke. He asked why she didn't just order a cream soda for herself. Toru replied that other people's orders always looked tastier. Kamitha admitted that he often thought the same thing but couldn't just ask like she did. As a trade for his cherry, Kamitha asked Toru to promise that she wouldn't ask for things from anyone other than him. Toru agreed, took the cherry, and smiled. That night, Toru went to buy a Guskull video game cassette. The next day, Araki and Ikuo were punished after being caught by the disciplinary committee at the game center. However, Araki didn't seem to mind. He was even enjoying himself, which only made Ruize furious. As a result, they were banned from going to the game center until the final exams were over. Araki was shocked that Ruize even called him a pervert. According to Ikuo, Ruize had sharp instincts, sharp enough to see right through Araki, who was in fact obsessed with fluffy animals. It turned out that the girl they had tried to save had also been caught by the disciplinary committee, making it difficult for them to come up with an excuse. In the end, they were accused of tricking Makoto into taking weird pictures. Kamitha was surprised by how strict the disciplinary committee had become. Araki explained that they had been that strict ever since they caught a pair of students fooling around in the pipe storage room 10 years ago. Ikuo also mentioned that Ruize had noticed them escaping the previous day, so now the disciplinary committee was keeping an eye on the game center. He suggested that they stay away from it for the time being. Araki then pointed out that Toru hadn't come to school that day and asked Kamitha if he knew why. Kamitha casually responded, "Maybe it's because we got married yesterday." Ikuo and Araki were stunned by his choice of words. Kamitha then clarified that Hikari was Toru's junior back in middle school. He also recalled Hikari saying that if he stuck around Toru, arguments were just the beginning. Araki admitted that ever since they met Toru, the way they played games had changed. Ikuo noted that Toru was incredibly skilled in Miryusa, but Kamitha argued that all of them had improved because of her. Ikuo pointed out that Toru leveled up so quickly that it was hard to keep up with her, and because of that, they didn't have time to study. Wasn't that also a problem for Kamitha? Kamitha admitted that he had even started cutting into his lunch money just to play Guskull. Araki realized that being friends with Toru had affected their pride, their grades, and even their finances. He even found himself longing for the simpler days of playing casual games with just the guys. Kamitha then asked what they really thought about Toru, but they didn't understand what he meant. Kamitha explained that he had seen Ikuo and Toru at a cram school near the station. Ikuo asked what was wrong with that, pointing out that he had also seen Araki going on a date with Toru near the station. Kamitha was shocked and demanded an explanation from Araki. Araki explained that he just wanted a keychain like the one Toru had given Kamitha, so he had asked her to find something similar for him. Araki was surprised by Kamitha's reaction, especially since Kamitha had previously called him a fluffy animal maniac. Ikuo laughed, unable to believe how flustered Kamitha was. Ikuo then showed his Miryusa character without a hat, and Kamitha suddenly recognized it. It looked just like their grade school friend. It turned out that she was Ikuo's first love. He had coincidentally seen her at the cram school near the station and wanted to confirm it was really her. He hadn't expected Toru to be taking lessons there too, but after explaining his situation to her, he ended up enrolling in the class as well. Kamitha was relieved to hear the truth. Ikuo then asked about Kamitha's feelings. Kamitha simply said that he respected Toru as a gamer. That response made Ikuo and Araki burst into laughter. They thought Kamitha was just trying to dodge the question. Araki had already noticed that Kamitha was completely into Toru ever since he traded his rare item for her. If he wasn't, there was no way he would have given up something so valuable. Kamitha denied it, saying that wasn't what he was thinking at the time. Araki then asked Kamitha to let Toru know that he and Ikuo wouldn't be able to go to the game center for a while because they had to take care of the rabbits after school. Ikuo added that however far Kamitha wanted to take things with Toru was up to him. Kamitha just nodded in understanding. That day, Toru spent the entire time in her room, playing Gusgall to her heart's content.